the official podcast of New York's world famous comedy cellar, coming at you on Sirius XM 99 Raw Dog. And on the Laugh Button Podcast Network, Dan Naturman here with Perry L. Ashenbrand, the producer and on-air personality. Things sort of just evolved that way. It wasn't the intention at the outset, but that's how it is. We also have Noam Dworman, owner of the world famous comedy cellar and mandolinist extraordinaire. You might have heard a little strumming there that he was doing for us. We also have a relatively new comedy cellar regular comedian named, well, his name is Tanael Joachim, I believe.
That's right.
But everybody just calls him TJ because it's easier. And he was born and raised in Haiti, started performing stand-up in 2012, and has quickly gained a lot of attention. He's a regular in all the New York comedy venues, and his debut special comes out January 3rd on Amazon Prime. What's that called, TJ?
It's called January 3rd, actually. It's already out there. That's the title.
The title is January. Oh, his debut special, January 3rd, is available on it. I misread that. Okay. Well, we'll probably want to ask you why you named it that. I guess there's a reason. And of course, not of course, but like almost every comic, he has a podcast. It's called Raw Beef with Sean Patton and Wilfred Padua.
You are right the first time, of course.
Yeah, of course. Every comic has a podcast. Yes. So welcome, TJ, to our program. I believe you're making your debut here with us.
Yes, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And why do you call your special January 3rd? There must be a story behind that.
That's the day I was born, and I got to tape it on January 3rd, 2020, before the world shut down.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you taped your special on your birthday. That's interesting. And
yeah, that was nice.
And you're a young man. I guess you're in your 20s or 30s.
Early 30s. I'm 32. 30s.
Well, you're very lucky. I'm jealous of anybody that. I had my chance and I blew it.
How old are you, Dan?
I'm 51 years young, but I'll be 50.
Oh, you look great.
Well, thank you. That's what people say. And they can't all be lying, so I'll assume it's true. Noam, how are you tonight? You seem a little off.
Well, we had a kind of tragedy here. So, an old member of Comedy Cellar committed suicide. I thought you were aware.
Well, I have been made aware.
So you were asking just so I would say that?
No, I said I have been made aware, as you had mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. Obviously.
Did I bring the show down?
Probably.
No, I don't think so. I think it's important to talk about that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's we talk about this a lot on my podcast. So actually, I had a suicide episode recently.
Yeah, I mean, I think that taking the stigma away from suicide is really an important thing to talk about.
What's the stigma?
I think that, people are always shocked when people kill themselves. And I think that people probably think about killing themselves a lot more than they let on, but you're not really supposed to talk about it. And if you were allowed to talk about it more, maybe it would be easier for those people to get help. You don't just kill yourself the first time you think about killing yourself, is what I'm saying.
Right.
It's like if you kill yourself, it's something that like you've been thinking about for a long time or you've thought about many times.
And there's the other stigma that it's selfish for somebody to kill themselves. And I don't think that's true at all.
Yeah, I think that you have to be in unspeakable amount of pain.
That's right.
And it probably takes a lot of fucking balls to go through it.
To call it selfish basically means you made it about you.
Yeah.
The person who's alive.
Right.
Which is insanity. Why would you do that?
I think that most people who kill themselves think that the world would be, and the people that they love would be better off without that person, which is,
on some level, yeah.
I think that's people who murder.
No, listen, I have a lot, unfortunately, of people throughout the course of my life who, were very close to me and family members who have done that. So, it's really, really heartbreaking. And I don't know, I was, I met your friend for the first time, just a couple of months ago. You plopped me down at a table with several people and then disappeared, as you are wont to do. And so I wound up, really talking to him for, I don't know, 2-3 hours. And he was
now I understand. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, he was really just so dynamic and smart and funny, and I mean, he was drinking a lot. But he was really, really happy to see you.
Yeah, well, this was. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I want to talk about it, but I'll say this: that I guess so this was a guy who was. I want to make this interesting to listeners, but this was a guy who was extremely special guy. Kind of just one of these guys who could hang with any group of people. He was a fantastic athlete. He was Manhattan darts champion, but he was also wouldn't call him an intellectual, but he had an intellectual spirit. He was interested in ideas and things like that, and so he could basically hang out with any, and he was extremely funny. He was a real queen bee. People used to flock to him. He could hang out with anybody. And then my father.
Musician?
No, I wasn't a musician, but he had a very sophisticated musical ear. He knew like underground hip hop, and he also knew Brazilian music. And he turned me on to Gil Scott-Heron in the 90s, and but he also like the Beatles. Like he was Black Puerto Rican, so he also knew a lot of salsa music. But he was a very, 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 very unusual guy, and my father loved him. And we were very, very, very close, like every day hanging out close for many years. And then he had like a mental breakdown, and he was acting crazy, a manic depression. And apparently he had this, there's a common pattern. He'd had this when he was like 18, and then it went away. This is a common thing for people with manic depression. Apparently they have an incident, and then it goes into remission, as it were, for many years, and then can come back again as you approach your 30s or something. So that was the pattern he had. And so
it
then
gets worse each time, right? The episode usually progressively gets
no,
worse.
I don't think he got worse and worse. I think he got actually milder. But anyway, so without going into the very upsetting and maybe too personal circumstances around the suicide, I just want to say that, if you remember, I had another friend who died, Glenn Miller, who was on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And he at the time of COVID, he was blind and had HIV. But this is a real cheerful podcast. He was blind and had HIV, and was on dialysis, and he could not get through to get vaccinated. Remember, he couldn't find any phone number, was busy signals, and he was blind, incapacitated, and high risk. So he was exactly the kind of person that you would think the government would prioritize itself to help first. Sick, disabled, elderly. These are the people you would think the bureaucracy would make job one, but they don't. And so, I had to get him vaccinated. He ended up dying of something that wasn't related to COVID. But similarly, in this situation, my friend who just committed suicide, he had an incident, and the people who were there begged him, his family begged the cops, I believe this is true, begged the cops to take him to a mental hospital. And they didn't. They took him to a regular processing and order protection and blah, blah, blah. And he wound up, it set in motion some dominoes, which I truly think if led to his death. And once again, it just brings out to me. Now, this issue has been touched on many times since, the George Floyd and the issue of people with mental issues and how the cops handle them. And this is a very deep issue. And in this situation, they didn't, and he had a history, like they could look it up. They could have known he had, but they didn't take him to a mental hospital. And so the result of that was that he ended up with an order of protection and couldn't go home. And this led to I can't talk about it. I just can't talk about it.
Well, to switch gears to something a little less heavy, I assigned the documentary on Caitlyn Jenner on Netflix.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Well, I would just say that I recommend it highly. It's very interesting. And I'm not a sports fan, but I love a good sports drama. And it gets into Bruce's winning the gold medal at Montreal, which was fascinating.
What year was that?
That was in 1976.
Oh wow.
You know, it was a big moment in sports when he won the.
Well, apparently he had his period, so it was really amazing that he was able to. Sorry, I'm not allowed to make a joke like that. Okay, go ahead.
I'm not sure. We'll find out. But by the way, I'm not dead naming because Caitlin refers to him as Bruce.
Right.
At the end of the documentary, he says, "No, that was Bruce that won that medal." So I don't know that every trans person feels that way.
Yeah, I mean, at some point in history, there was a man named Bruce. That man is no longer there, but you know, I don't think that's dead naming to say that.
Well, I think, according to some, that might be, or some trans people don't even want to acknowledge that their
Yeah.
former
Yeah,
identity
that's right. So-
existed, and some, I guess, do, and some would refer to Bruce as a he and some as a she. But Caitlin seems to be saying it was a he. His name was Bruce. He won a
Right.
gold medal in '76.
So you know, I have 3 friends of various levels of friendship. One of them extremely close who became trans, and the other 2 I only knew, but they were already transitioned. And then I met some other people peripherally through my friend who became trans. But anyway, what I found from talking to them is that they're not that sensitive about these things. That's been over and over. They're like, no, we understand that people close to us have trouble remembering, and it's awkward. This is one of these things which, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, or squeaky wheel gets attention. But I think that in reality, I mean, anything, if you do it with a disrespect, that speaks for itself. But other than that, I don't think people are. I suspect that the trans community is not up in arms about, like, if you refer to Bruce Jenner as Bruce Jenner, because I understand you're trying to describe Bruce Jenner. You know,
You're saying it's like Latin X?
Yes.
Yes, I guess. Yeah, it's one of these things which no real people don't use it, but you have to
But
say
like white people say Latinx, and like
Yeah.
anybody who's
It's young white liberals
Yeah.
who use that term.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
never met a Hispanic
Right,
person who
exactly.
refers to themselves that way.
Have you ever seen a trans, or known a trans person, or known of a trans person that seemed less, say, a trans woman that seemed less feminine in their male incarnation than Bruce Jenner?
Hmm.
You know, and my friend, he's been on his podcast. I said my friend Michael, who transitioned, didn't have a feminine bone in his, almost not a feminine bone in his body. I mean, he was a dancer, but you know, that's not feminine.
wow.
But no, I mean, he was banging women 3 at a time. I mean, this
Okay,
guy,
but
this
wait a
guy, this guy's a
second.
real man.
I think
He was like Fredo. Yeah.
I think that the point is that there needs to be a distinction made between, you know, people sometimes accidentally misgendering people and just blatant disregard for respecting
Yeah, well,
somebody's
Noam said
gender.
that fairly explicitly.
But wait a second. But the other part of that is, in some cases, it's actually very dangerous to misgender somebody, and you put people's lives at risk. Like, there are people.
Why is it dangerous?
Because if you are in a place that's conservative, it can get you killed. I mean,
Oh, you think you're passing as like you're passing as a not as a cisgender?
100%.
Yeah,
I mean, in fact, there are like documented cases of that happening in places like Alabama, and I mean, all you have to do is look it up.
Yeah, well, you're not conspicuous.
You mean like if somebody told me good Shabbos and not to Germany?
Yes, it's like if.
But I suspect that that's not that regular a story, Periel. But all right.
I'm just saying, I think like we shouldn't be cavalier, and I'm not saying you are being at all. No, I'm just saying in general.
I think that most trans people are aware that they're trans, and if your passing is not trans, I mean, why would you even stay in on it? So why would you stay in some KKK neighborhood if you know that your secret, your secret can get you killed? Like, why would you even stay there? It just seems like you're talking about very few people. But all right.
What was the Hilary Swank movie? Boys Don't Cry?
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one.
I mean, that's a true story.
It's about
Yeah, well, so I'm saying like a true story that
It's about a woman that became a man, and then when they found out she was a woman in some small town in the South, I guess it was, and then
Mhm.
when they found out that she was a man, I think they, sorry, a woman became a man. When they found out she was a woman, I mean, he was a woman, or he was born a woman, or
yeah, right.
they
Yeah.
raped and killed him.
And
Yeah, so this is a true story, and it's I'm just saying it's dangerous to assume too much from a single story to think that this is a widespread thing, and also attitudes have changed quite a lot on top of that. So
Well, I
but
think it
anyway, you know,
depends on where you are.
yeah. Well,
In
anyway,
any
but
case, everybody knows Caitlin's story, so there's no risk of revealing secrets there.
So what was
No.
so compelling about this documentary?
Well, two aspects were compelling. Number one, the transition of Bruce Jenner to Caitlyn. I'm getting a little crackly on my sound, Nicole. I don't know if there's anything.
okay, it's okay.
But also, I found the best part was the sports part. The part about this athlete who got 10th place at the Munich Games in '72, and she talks about how she was watching the medal ceremony in '72, and the Russian guy who won the decathlon that year was getting the gold medal around his neck, and Bruce at the time said, "That's what I want, and that's what I'm going to get," and set a course toward that end, and single-mindedly pursued gold in the decathlon, got the gold, became probably the most famous athlete in America at that time. I mean, I even know, for me to know an athlete means that athlete is pretty damn famous, because I don't pay any
It means they're
attention.
either famous or they're Jewish.
Well, if they're Jewish, they're probably famous for being Jewish.
We know like
Mark Spitz, yeah.
Yeah.
how many famous Jewish athletes are there?
Well, that's the point, TJ.
No, but I'm
Nicole, turn him up a little bit. I can't hear him.
Is
Yeah,
there
there's
any-
Mark Spitz. There's Sandy Koufax.
Who's Sandy Koufax?
Yeah, I've never
That's
heard of any.
a baseball player from back in the day.
One of the
Are there any-
greatest baseball players of all time.
Are there any famous Jewish athletes now?
Yeah,
I mean,
then Mark
Julian
Patton,
Edelman is about an
I'd say-
eighth Jewish, but that's as good as we're gonna get. So we gotta go with him. We gotta pin all our hopes on
None
Julian.
in the NBA?
In the
None?
NBA?
Yeah.
I don't think so, but I think there used to be back in the days when it was white people in the NBA.
Why is it that nobody assumes discrimination when there's no Jews athletes? Like what? Why is like Jews and why is Jews in sports the one thing that people say? Well, I guess those people just don't want to be athletes. Like what? Why? Like in any other context, you
But
take
do they say that, or do they say they're not good at it, or do they say both?
or whatever, or they say they're not good at. But any other context, you take a score and then you say, "Oh, there's something going on here. This is fishy. We know this is obvious discrimination. Like why are there not more women firefighters? Oh, that's discrimination. That must be discrimination. But why are there not more Jewish firefighters? He was like, of course, there's not Jewish firefighters. As, they pick and choose what they want to assume. Anyway.
Well, in any case, just getting back to the documentary. So that's what I thought was the best. But then it got to the transition and the reality show and all that, which was interesting, but not as interesting to me as just the raw drama of the '76 Olympics.
Yeah, well, and that was 72 was when the Jewish athletes were killed,
yeah,
right?
They didn't go into that. They just talked about the decathlon that year.
We can turn
Yeah.
anything Jewish on this podcast.
All three of you Jewish?
We happen to be, yes. And so I always say, when Periel asks me, who should we book? I say, any Gentile available. Because enough is enough.
That's true.
So you were born in Haiti?
I was born and raised in Haiti. Yeah, I came over here in 2008.
Under what circumstances did you come in? Under dire circumstances or
No, I'm fairly lucky. I came with a student visa. Yeah, I came here to go to college. I went to school in Long Island, and I spent 2 years. Then I realized it was kind of a waste of time, and I dropped out and became a comedian.
So your
And your-
parents are still back in Haiti?
They are
Are you one of the upper class Haitian?
not upper, but I would say I was lucky in my neighborhood. I was the kid where my parents got lucky enough that other kids would come to my house to eat if there was no food at their house. So we did
wow.
okay.
So-
Weren't
so-
upper class, but weren't poor.
You-
The term middle class doesn't even really exist in Haiti, but we did okay. Yeah.
So your family is still there, but things are very tough over there now, right?
Yeah, it's pretty insane. It's been like a crazy just couple of months because you have the president's murder, followed by the storm season. Then you have an earthquake, and then there's been this whole thing happening in Texas with the migrants who got
Jesus.
some crazy information that because there's a whole group of Haitians who left after the 2010 earthquake, and they went to South America, Chile, Venezuela, a bunch of countries. And apparently, someone told them that the U.S. was actually giving papers to any Haitians who got in. So they all got on this great migration and traveled across South America and got to the Texas border. And they got there, they realized it wasn't true.
Oh,
So now Biden is sending a lot of them back.
it's horrible.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to have to live with, and just because that's your people. So
Of
it's a
course.
sense of shame all the time. It's very strange.
What is growing up in Haiti? Obviously, a lot of Haitians want to come to the United States, but what was the opinion of the United States among the hate? Was it America's great, we love America, we can't wait to go, or America's imperialist? You know, what was the sense growing up?
Mostly the great part, yeah. Because a lot of us have cousins who came earlier, so they they would come every couple of years or so. So we would see how they live. You'd see that their success stories. So it's always this dream that a lot of us have to come to the U.S.
And when you see something like Haitians being sent back at the border, does that affect your opinion of the United States, or do you just say, well, they have an immigration policy and they're following it, or how do you?
It's a little bit
perceive-
of both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because obviously, if you take 10,000 people and just put them in this country, what's going to happen to them? So a country has laws, but there's also the complicated subject of Haiti is partly the way it is because of America. So it's like, is there a duty on the American side to sort of help Haitians because Haiti isn't the state it is because of what America did? There's a lot of stuff that goes with Haiti. Was taken over by the U.S. for 19 years, 1915 to 1934. And then during the 90s with Clinton, there was a lot of stuff that went wrong where they really basically dropped chemical stuff on certain beaches in Haiti that really set us back. There's just a lot of history there as to why it is the way it is. And it's very tricky to say, well, America owes us to take those people. I don't know if that's something I would say, but it's very complicated.
I think it's a totally reasonable thing to say. And I also think that it's 10,000 people,
Yes.
it's not like it's 1 million people. And
Yeah.
Obviously they were given information. They didn't just fucking show up here.
Right.
And I just think as a human rights issue, it's actually really,
And the
Just-
point a lot of people were making is America is taking a bunch of Afghans
of
from what
course,
just recently happened. So why not do the same with Haitians?
of course.
Yeah.
And
No.
just like a moral, ethical obligation. Also, the way it was done was just so disgusting.
Yeah. The optics were horrible.
Well, they were on
Horrible.
horseback. I know that.
I mean,
was
what the
whips.
fuck was
Yeah.
that?
Oh well, Periel. I mean, listen.
Yes, Noam?
I know. I listen. Just to preface it by
Preface
if
it.
the United States wants to bring in 10,000 Haitians for humanitarian reasons, I'm totally fine with that. Being fine with that is not the same thing as saying that the United States has an obligation to do so. If people show up at the border from South America on some sort of incorrect rumor that they can come in, I mean, that doesn't create a moral obligation on the United States to set policy. They can go back. They're not coming from Haiti. They're coming from South America. It's not like they're coming from an earthquake. They're coming from Venezuela. And, these countries are second world countries. They had a life there.
Complete shackles.
But what
where-
about? I mean,
Wherever they're coming from, they're not coming. What I'm saying is they're not coming from a disaster area. They're coming from South America and
Yeah. It's mostly Chile and Brazil. And
Chile
then
and Brazil. So I
smaller
mean,
countries like Venezuela.
and there is the precedent that gets set that if you just show up and now we have to come in. I mean, we have to at some point reckon with the fact that there's probably, and I'm not even exaggerating, 1 billion people in, uncomfortable situations around the world who would get a ticket tomorrow if we told them they could come into the United States. It's just, there has to be rules.
Listen, I have a very.
I would, in other words, if it was 10,000 people who showed up from an earthquake in Haiti, I would find that a human rights I'd find it a lot more of a human rights issue there. 10,000 people who show up from a country like Brazil or, what was the other country you said?
Chile.
Or Chile. I said, well, go back to Chile. Like,
Here's the thing.
it's like, you're not,
Here's the thing.
what's wrong with Chile?
See, going back to Chile or Brazil is somewhat acceptable. I think the mistake they made was they took them back to Haiti, which is a place where a lot of them haven't been for 11 years.
Oh, that I
Well,
can't.
were they not authorized to go back? Were they illegally or undocumented in Chile and Brazil, or were they allowed to live in those countries?
No, the majority of them were documented and they were living there.
The
I guess
whole
it's
thing
this
is-
mindset that America is better. So if we get a chance to come to America, we'll come to America.
But the fact
And
that
the last thing, as far as horseback is concerned, now there was this awful misinformation that people were being whipped, and that what they had, it was retracted, but sure the rumor still persists. But
I don't know
mean-
that was that retracted. I mean, I saw videos and pictures of it.
no, you did not. You did not see a video or picture of anybody being whipped. Come on now.
I did. What are you talking about? It was all over the news.
You need. It was all. It was not. It was. It never happened. Nobody was whipped.
Are you saying that there were not? There was nobody on horseback with whips. That's what you're saying.
There might have been. They had whatever reins for the horses. Nobody was whipped, but they were on horseback. And I don't know. I understand there's a look to that, but I don't know what the alternative is in terms of practical reality, in terms of being able to do that job.
Well, and if it's in rugged terrain,
Yeah, you have to be above people. We have horses. We have cops on horseback in New York City.
Yeah, we shouldn't
for a
have that
reason.
either, for a different reason, but that's a different animal rights conversation. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right, but I'm saying that there is a practical reason that cops are on horseback, and I mean, you're going to always take the side of.
Humanitarian, yes, I am.
No, it's not a humanitarian side to
It is
that
a
somebody's on.
humanitarian side. You
That
don't
somebody's on a horseback.
know that you don't take 10,000 people and send them back to Haiti and handle the situation the way it was handled. It was horrible.
All right, Tariel. All right.
I like the diversity of opinion on this podcast.
well, that's the point of this podcast. And Noam is never afraid. Unlike me, Noam is never afraid to say what he means.
Well, listen, I said again, I would take I'm not saying I don't want the Haitians to come in. God forbid, I'm not saying that at
You're
all.
not saying that. I know.
But
you're
I'm
not
saying that I mean, you're
me ask you this.
coming perilously close to saying that Haitians by definition are in perilous circumstances. And I want to remind again that the story is these were Haitians coming from Chile, not from the disaster in Haiti.
That got
And
sent
being-
back to the disaster in Haiti.
Well, I don't know why they're sent back, but from there they should go back to Chile. But it's being conflated as if. So what's your issue? That we didn't let them in, or that we sent them back to Haiti?
Both.
Well, okay, let's take them one at a time then.
Okay, let me
And I'm
ask
saying-
you this. If they came here from Canada, how do you think it would have been handled? Not
The same way
Haitians,
you
just
think 10,000
Canadians.
10,000 people can come in from Canada? And,
If 10,000 Canadians landed,
Well, our dear friend Graham K got tossed out.
they did not take 10,000 Canadians.
okay. Did he really?
Yeah, I mean, he came back eventually. He
I love him.
I think he asked me to write some note like, we really need him here or something like that.
Did you?
Does he have a green card now? Is it safe?
Is he safe?
Yeah, I think he's authorized to be here.
Okay. Yeah, I got my green card in 2019, and the weight that got off my shoulders, just having that and just feeling less of something might happen. I can't do what I want
To get a green card, did you need what did you need to show? Did you need to show that you bring something to the table that we can't
Yeah,
find here?
there's this thing called Alien of Extraordinary Ability.
That's
that
you.
Yeah,
show that
that's
you're
great.
performing everywhere, and it cost a whole lot of money. It was a whole thing, but yeah, it was like 5-6 years of anguish because I had to transfer from a student visa to a TPS, which is temporary protected status, and from that just gradually go to green card.
Apparently, we took a lot of people from We took a lot of people from Krypton on that visa, I think.
Now, is there stand up in Haiti? Like, do you perform? Did you ever perform?
Now that's an interesting question. I mean, Periel's generally not authorized to change subjects, but I will give you that is an interesting question. Stand up in Haiti, yes.
Yes, there is. It's fairly new. I performed there in 2018
In Creole?
in Haitian Creole and English.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a little weird because it's so new that people don't know what to do with it.
Right.
We have comedy, but it's very much farcical, just sketch and people dressing up as other people to make fun of it. But just a guy with a microphone talking, it's somewhat new. So you have to sort of hold the audience's hands and be like, this is what this is and all of it. There was a festival that.
So you just did the festival in Port-au-Prince?
in Port-au-Prince.
You know,
yeah.
I know JetBlue goes to Port-au-Prince. We were talking about that before
JetBlue
the
goes,
show.
Delta goes, American Airlines go.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
a lot of air service to
So apparently, from what Will has told me, Will Sylvince is a household name in Haiti. Is that correct?
Will Sylvince wasn't even born in Haiti.
No, but he
Yeah,
has the
well,
accent.
He has an accent. It's not Haitian, right?
Yeah, Will has a speech impediment.
He has a speech
That's it
impediment.
that he has.
Yeah, for years I thought it was a Haitian accent.
But,
Will is giving us a bad name. He's a sweet guy, but sometimes I'm like, what's going on, Will?
By the way,
He's just
I played one night with Wycliffe at the Village Underground. I played
Oh,
guitar
nice.
next to
What'd you
Wycliffe
play? Were you guys on stage together playing music?
on stage together. Yeah, I was supporting Wycliffe for a few songs. But that was before. That was before he didn't he have some controversy? He ran for president of Haiti and then he got caught with money or something. What happened with Wycliffe?
True.
Yeah, he ran for president, but he wasn't at the end he wasn't qualified because the Constitution says you have to be a Haitian citizen and you have to have lived in the country for 5 years prior to the election.
Is that the law they're planning on following over there in terms of political stuff?
They've been
That's
trying
the
to
one they're
change
gonna
it.
hold on to.
They've been trying to change it.
Aren't they like murdering like people like left and right over there?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But Wycliffe is also one of those success stories because he came here in, well, I don't remember the year, but it was 9 years old. He came from a very poor part of Haiti. His dad was a pastor and he was he just migrated to Jersey. And then he always knew how to play music from his dad's church. And that turned into the Wycliffe from the Fugees that we now know.
By the way, if Haitians can't get into America, doesn't Quebec have a fairly liberal policy with regard to Haitian immigrants?
There's a pretty nice, sizable Haitian population in Canada, in Montreal for the most part. But Ontario and Ottawa, there's still a couple of Haitians there too.
Because I know that because of the association with the French language,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
Quebecers, I think were encouraging, in fact.
But I guess it's farther. And
That's
here's
also
my question.
chilly.
yeah, it's very cold. There's a lot of adjustments you gotta make. That's why, like, you'll notice the Haitians that are in Canada are generally upper class Haitians because they were able to travel to Canada as opposed to Haitians who might have illegally got to Miami
Oh wow.
because that's just the proximity of it. You know, if you don't have papers, you're not gonna swim all the way to Montreal. That's insanity. So
By the way, I was in Haiti a couple of times. You know, I mean, when I used to do cruise ships, Royal Caribbean Cruise Line actually like basically owns a part of Haiti. There's like a part of Haiti called Labadie.
it's one of the most beautiful beaches that we have in the north. Yeah.
But
went there?
but if you're Haitian, you can't go there.
Yeah.
They walled it off. It's like, I mean, you can work there.
It's like a little thing for
It's like
tourists.
an
to
enclave
check
that
out.
I think Royal Caribbean
Yeah.
literally owns it.
That is
Yeah.
so insane.
And you dock there. And
Ariel cracks me up. Go ahead,
No,
Dan.
that's
Go ahead.
enraging. The most beautiful beach in Haiti, and you can't go. The Haitians can't go there.
can they go
Why
there?
don't you ask the Haitians if they're happy to have all the money that comes in from the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line that wouldn't come in if they didn't have access to that beach? Why don't you
But
ask
why
them?
can't the Haitians use it also?
Some Haitians use it. I think they wall it off from like poor people.
Oh,
But middle class
okay.
and upper class Haitians.
I went, they didn't see Haitian one.
See, Periel refuses to acknowledge hard, difficult truth. Like, for instance, if you have a whole bunch of people coming from a cruise line, number one, they provide a tremendous amount of money to an economy that doesn't have many things to make money from. Number one. Number two, when you start allowing poor people, this is harsh, but it's true, then you have all the crime and security problems that go with that on a beach filled with rich tourists. So this is a difficult logistical problem, and you can shake your head and roll your eyes about it. But the fact is, in real life, what would happen is they would find a different, the cruise line would find a different beach and Haiti would
Okay.
be out the money.
I
And
am
this
not disputing that that is a reality. My issue is with the solution. I don't think walling it
What's your
off.
solution? Horseback? What's your solution? Listen, the thing is that poverty is a terrible, terrible thing in the world. And there's no easy answers to this stuff. And everything seems harsh when you any decision you make. But the fact is that these are very, very difficult things to do. But I have a question. So Dominican Republic, which shares the island, was island of Hispaniola. It's is a more successful, has a higher standard of living as a country. What would happen if 10,000 Haitians showed up in the Dominican Republic? Can they go there?
There's a lot of Haitian immigrants there, but
yeah, there's a decent amount where we've always been fighting over that. Haitians who cross the border to go to the Dominican Republic. I don't think they would allow 10,000 Haitians in, though.
Yeah, it's ironic because I have a friend, a close friend, who's Dominican, and he's always like, lambasting America because America's not taking enough millions of immigrants, and we have millions and millions, right? And I'm like, well, what about you taking some Haitians in the Dominican Republic? And he's got a million answers for me about that. It's like,
you're talking about Franco Murillo.
Yeah. Only America is supposed to take, everybody.
Well,
And God bless you. America's benefited from immigration, no doubt. I'm not saying America shouldn't take immigrants, but everything has a limit. What are we going to do?
Can
We're
I
having
request
problems.
authorization to ask TJ one more question?
Sure.
Authorization granted.
Thank you. What do your parents and your family think about being a comedian? And do you go back there a lot? And, what's their impression of all of this?
What's your first guess?
Well, I would imagine first of all, I'd be interested in what they do.
I'm going to make a guess, if I can guess. Haitians, like pretty much any immigrant population, even though your parents are still in Haiti, but they want the kid to be a doctor. They want their kid to be an educated member of the professional class, not a clown.
Yeah. Immigrant parents are also hacky because they all want the same thing. No diversity of opinion. That's just what seems reasonable and expect. It's just what they want to.
It's safe.
They want to brag to their neighbors about having.
But if you become famous, they're going to be like, look, my son, he's famous. I mean, that's a terrible Haitian accent.
Not a Haitian accent.
I don't know what
that was.
But yeah, they don't like it. My mom is no, not at all. My mom is the worst about that. She really hates it. I went home and I did 5 shows, and they tried to get her to come, and she refused to come. Yeah, she's a pretty awful person.
That's horrible.
Do you really think of your mother as an awful person, or you're just?
Yeah, it's just something I had to come to terms with. It's a very weird thing to say that your mom is not a great person, because your mom is just, we have somewhat of a matriarchal society in Haiti. You got to reveal your mother. And I had to talk a lot with therapists with accepting that fact that my mom is have you seen The Sopranos?
No.
Yes.
My mom is Livia Soprano, basically.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a good TV show to pitch, by the way.
You talk about that.
Haitian Sopranos.
Yeah, that would be fun. I actually have not Haitian Sopranos, but in my computer I have a treatment for a TV show that's something similar to that, because there's so much stuff that goes on in Haiti.
It's amazing, but I think that any immigrant sort of family would relate to that.
Now that brings up an interesting point, because
Thank
now
you.
diversity in programming I'm not going to say it's the golden age, because I don't know what tomorrow is going to bring.
Yeah.
But right now we have, well, first of all, we were talking about it before the show. The Squid Games is a Korean show that's become the most popular show on Netflix, or is about to be.
Yeah.
All kinds of shows. Ali Wong had her, is becoming, a big, or has become a big thing. Everything, then there's our friend Gina Yashire's show.
Yes. Bob Hart's
Abishola,
on ABC. Yeah.
The point is, it's diversity is in. You're diverse. Where's your show? Or have you been approached, or what is there any?
Well, I have a couple of things that I've been working on. The whole diversity is in thing. Some of it sometimes feels like a masquerade. You know what I mean? It's just like, I don't want forced diversity. I don't want you to just put a black person in a thing just to have a black person in the thing. Because then it becomes worse, because then you're going to write these people based on what you think they should be, as opposed to actually letting these people write what they want. And, you know, I like diversity of thought a lot more than I like forced racial and ethnic diversity, because it's not genuine. That's just not how people are. Because like every
So you
show,
see a show where everybody's friendship circle is diverse, and you're thinking to yourself,
right?
Wait a minute, white people don't hang around with this many black people.
Exactly. Just this little, like, if you look at the Golden Girls, that's a show a lot of people love it, because every culture has that group of women in it. So it's a show about a bunch of white women, but it's actually a very diverse show, because I know a lot of Haitian women who love that show. I know a lot of Black American women who love that.
For sure.
Because that's, now if you just force it and just put a bunch of Black women in there just for the sake of diversity, the show wouldn't be the same, because now you're focusing on the wrong, it's like skin dip diversity. It's
That
not
would be
real
two-
diversity.
But
I
we
wish that
but
was 227.
as in the case with as in the Squid Games has shown us, is that white people in America are not against watching Asians, a bunch of Asians, and probably
That's
wouldn't be
right.
against watching a show that focused on Haitian culture.
That's right. People love good entertainment. I think, there's this thing where people are tribal in nature. Yes, they want to see themselves. But I also think people will get out of that if they see themselves in other people. Like, I watched The Sopranos and I told her of Livia. I'm like, oh, that's my mom. I never thought, oh, that's a white Italian woman. I'm like, oh, that's exactly. I've seen a lot of shows with Black women, Black mothers. None of them were my mother. Livia Soprano was my mother. So that tells you a little bit about what the idea of diversity we're trying to promote. I think we go about it the wrong way, because it's a little bit bullshit.
Did you hear, this is related, did you hear about this woman on ESPN who got suspended for making some remarks? A Black woman on ESPN?
Is it Rachel Nichols? It might have been her.
Carrie Champion.
Oh, Carrie Champion got suspended. I love that. She's so cute.
I can play it. Let me see if
Carrie Champion is what? I'm not familiar with Carrie.
She's on ESPN. She's a sports
commentator.
Yeah.
And she's a Black woman.
Yeah, she's gorgeous. And she's great at her job. I don't want to appear sexist, Periel. I'm just wondering.
Oh no,
you're entitled to be attracted to a woman.
I like the idea that nobody would be offended by that but me. The men don't give a shit if you're being sexist.
Oh yeah, they all love it too. Why not?
Well, it's not sexist.
Hold on, but I can share it and play it. Hold on. Hold on a second. Hold on. Remember how to do this. We could advanced, share sound, optimize for video clip.
Nicole, is the share screen thing on multiple?
No. I got it.
I don't know if you do.
I do.
Okay.
You can see that, right?
Yep.
We got it.
And I'll play it and you're going to hear it. And it didn't work. What happened?
Your porn is coming up.
Oh, shit. Is it really? Okay. That was weird that it, I'll try it again.
Attractive woman.
Yeah.
She looks like Leanne Lord. Who's a comic.
We have to sit through the CNN commercial now. So let me mute it for the commercial. So I was gonna play, and then you can tell me what you think about this. I thought she got a total bum rap here. She seemed like she was just speaking her mind, and she got suspended. But
IMDb original series. IMDb now has programming. How is it that I don't have any? I mean, there's so many TV shows. You think I could get a job?
You can't get a gig at IMDb, Dan? Okay, here it comes.
Up on Leverage Redemption.
You hear that, right?
All seasons of Leverage.
Yeah, we got it.
They were wondering, they're like, why is it so important to you to say that you're biracial? I'm like, because my mom's white, she's Irish Italian, and my dad's Black. And I'm like, why not? Like, I actually feel like I have the best of both worlds. Barack Obama chose Black and he's biracial. I'm like, well, congratulations to the president. That's his thing. I think that's fascinating considering his Black dad was nowhere to be found, but his white mom and grandma raised him. But hey, you do you. I'm going to do me.
All right.
Joining us now to talk about this is Carrie
He
Champion.
got suspended for this.
Wait,
Hold on.
Champion was not suspended.
That girl was suspended. The girl who said
girl's
she
that's not
chose
Carrie.
to be biracial.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Whatever her name is. Yeah. I sorry. I just read it.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, which is the one that the TJ wants to have sex with?
Carrie Champion, but she's also very pretty.
The other one,
I would have sex with both.
The other one that looked like Leanne Lord,
At the same time.
also
Sage Steele is her name. Sage
and,
Steele.
and what does she do for a living? Is she a CNN broadcast?
She's an ESPN anchor.
Okay, got it. Okay, Paige Steele, which does
No,
sound like a porn star to me.
Paige or Sage?
Sage Steele. That's what I saw.
Sage Steele. I mean, it's sort of.
Hold on. So she got suspended or fired because she said she's biracial, as opposed to just saying.
Well, she said
No, because she said that about what the president had.
I guess they took it at because she said, "Well, what's up?" Because she made a remark about Barack Obama's father not being there, like she was. I mean, it's just crazy. First of all,
that, but she was saying Obama is also biracial, but he chose black. That's what she said.
She's saying, "What's the matter, Periel?"
No, I was just gonna go ahead.
So she's saying, in my opinion, she was saying that she was pointing out that it's interesting that he chose to in her opinion, interesting that he chose to embrace the black side of him, even though it was the white side of him that raised him. That now it's but
I see.
Well, then she said, "You do you," which is kind of
so
an obnoxious.
His black father wasn't
now,
there, but what this woman afterwards, Carrie Champion, says is that she's making an anti-black remark about the black dads or whatever is not being there. But either way, she's biracial. She's speaking her mind, and this is crazy that people are getting suspended for. Now, I'll tell you this: no Jew would get suspended for saying things that other Jews didn't like. Like if somebody went up there, like Seth Rogen said, I don't understand this Israel thing and blah 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 blah.
He got in a lot of hot water for that.
Well, people criticize him, but nobody said he should get fired. I just think that this is just wrong. And I'm not black, obviously, but I can just imagine that if I were black, I might be like, why are they treating us like children? Like, why can't, I don't have to agree with every single thing that every black person says.
But no, and what if it was a white person that said Barack Obama's father was nowhere to be found? Why is he identifying as black? How would you feel?
Listen, I'm okay with anybody saying whatever they want to say, really. But I would, if a white person said that, it would have the additional baggage of being presumptuous. And I get that would be a dicier issue, but she's actually talking about her own life experiences as a biracial woman. And she's sharing with us what she feels, about, and so what do you think, TJ?
I think part of the problem we have now is social media and just this culture of presenting who we are as opposed to being who we are. It's created a lot of fake people. So whenever somebody actually speaks an opinion, that's how they really feel, then we get terrified by that and we just go quickly to fire. I'm completely against firing someone for an opinion. You can fire people for crimes or for hurting other people's livelihoods, but you cannot just get rid of somebody for saying something that they feel that doesn't hurt a group of people. Just the notion that somehow black people are offended by this so much so that ESPN has to put this woman out of a job because of an innocuous statement that she made. That's just sort of infantilizing black people in a weird way. That's what it's doing.
I agree with you. I'm happy you said it because I feel just on a human level, that's just what it seems to me like. And the fact that they don't treat other groups this way is part of that picture, because it's true. They don't treat Jews that way.
Well, do they treat Asians that way? Because Jews are considered white.
No Asian's going to get fired for saying something controversial about Asians. It's crazy what's going on. Can you imagine this poor woman? She's black or she's half black, and she's not fired. She's suspended. I suspect they give her job back. They probably overshot. But just this go-to thing now of firing or suspension, it's too much.
If I were to suspend her, it would just be for using the obnoxious, overused phrase "you do you." It's right up there. It's right up there with full stop in terms of just phrases I don't need to hear again.
What about
but I'll tell you something interesting.
Or conflate.
Can I tell you something? This is interesting. I use conflate today, but I use it properly. It's seldom, I use it because it was exactly the right word at the right time. So my stepson Nicholas is mixed race, and
So your own
this,
kids.
no, but this is interesting.
Okay.
He always had a resentment towards Barack Obama too. I never understood. No, and I'm thinking maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Like he never really expressed to me what it was. And I used to get upset when he would criticize Obama because I knew that people would assume that he was getting it from me. So I was like, shut up about that Obama stuff. I don't know. Oh, that's because your white dad does. And I never had anything against Obama except on Israel. So, but I mean, like he never heard me saying bad things about Obama around the house. It was, and he would say, you know, he's, why does he say he's black? So maybe that's a somewhat common reaction that other mixed race people might have about
I don't think
Obama.
that's what it is. I think that Nicholas has a fraught relationship with his own father, who's black, and you're really the one who raised him. So he identifies you really as his father.
Yeah, but
and
that's
that
her point.
What?
That was her
Yeah,
point.
I
She's
get
like, why
that,
do
but I'm saying I think that that's why I think that the Nicholas's beef is specific.
Well, when people see Barack Obama, they see a black man, you know, generally speaking. So I think
Well,
that's
this woman looks like a black woman to me, you know.
The average person would look at this woman and say, "Oh, that's a black woman."
Yeah.
And it's a very tricky thing because I think some of it might have come from slavery. The notion that no matter how little or how much blackness you
Yeah.
have in you, you are a black person. But if you half white and half black, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying you're biracial because you're from two very different races and possibly two very different cultures.
Yeah, or it's just like how you feel too,
Right.
right? Like sometimes you identify more with one thing than you do with the other.
Absolutely.
Do you know, TJ? It's slightly
Can I
off
just,
topic.
can I just answer that question? Because I think the right answer is this. When you are biracial, you are both. Half and half is a weird way to put it. She
Yeah.
is a black woman. She is also an Italian woman. She is both, and she has every right to identify with all the black culture that she wants, as well as all the Italian culture that she wants. Just like my kids, who are half, you know, they're half Jewish and then half Puerto Rican and half Indian. But let's just presume for a second they were totally half Puerto Rican. They can be totally Jewish and totally Puerto Rican, right? Why don't they don't have to choose?
Yeah,
They can
I agree
embrace
with that.
both fully. Yeah,
I agree.
But, get to go on birthright and get a free trip.
But the black thing, of course, when you are a group which is historically discriminated against, and when the world views you that way, first of all, it's natural for you, I think, to cling to that closer because that's the way the world treats you, as it were. I put that in quotes, treats you. But nevertheless, if your mother or your father, whoever it is Italian, and you love your father and you grew up there and you enjoyed that part of your culture, why would you want to be pressured to pretend you're not that? You are that, right?
Yeah.
So this is all silly, and she should be able to say whatever she wants.
I agree.
Anyway.
You were going to ask a question.
I was going to ask a question because I know very little about Haiti, to be honest with you. But do you know your ancestry? I mean, African Americans have often been cut off from their ancestry and don't really know it. I was wondering if Haitians, who are also African descended,
yeah,
do you know where you come from? You know, all those generations
I actually
ago.
got curious about that 2 years ago when I did 23andMe. And I, you know, not surprisingly, I'm West African, like most Haitians, and I'm 34% Nigerian, 20% Congolese, and then there's Senegambian, which is a combination of Senegal and Gambia. There's a whole lot of stuff there, but it wasn't very like, oh, that's cool. But it was just like, oh, that's.
But do you know how many generations you go back in Haiti and when they came, or do you have any of that information?
I think they told me that the last living West African ancestor I had was from 1870.
Wow.
Yeah. But Haitians were brought for the first time. West Africans were brought to Haiti in 1503. So it's very far removed. But what was impressive was when I sent it in and they sent me the DNA stuff, they somehow knew that I had very recent Caribbean ancestry because none of that information is given. It's just a spit that you put in a tube and you send it away. And they gave me all the African stuff, and then they made sure to say, this is where in Haiti you have your most recent ancestry. And it was very, very like accurate to the T. Like they have a little map and they show you this darker area is where your ancestor might have been, and it's actually the area where I'm from.
By the way, TJ, when you did the
That is
23andMe, when you did the 23andMe, you didn't make the same mistake I did you? You spit in the tube, right? Because I know like
just
men
a
don't like to
whole
read
lot of
directions.
jizz, that's all I said.
You would think that I've told this before. You would think the obvious, but you're not supposed to send them the
Well, what
obvious.
is-
They don't want that
Is there a
DNA.
native population in Haiti, like of Amerindians that?
No, and I talk about this a lot. It's something that I wish we had.
Like who
'Cause
was there when the French and the Africans?
there were a little population of Native Americans, sort of called Arawaks and Tainos.
Yeah.
And they
Okay.
were similar to like the Incas in Peru and like the Aztecs in Mexico, sort of very similar culture of Native Americans, but you know, a different twist on it. But when Christopher Columbus and his people came, they kind of decimated all
So
of
they're all there's nothing.
Yeah,
left.
we don't have any of that, unfortunately. It's very sad.
But it might be that you have some of that in you.
Possibly.
That may be how they figured out that you're from, or maybe they compare you to the other people that they know are from Haiti.
Yes.
Yeah, I
It
don't
could-
know how
it
they
could
do
have been
that.
that.
I
Could
don't
have
know how
been
they do
that.
that.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Sounds a little
TJ,
less finds it, I guess, a little less interesting than I do.
no, I find it very interesting. I think that we're out of time. And I was gonna say I'm looking forward to seeing TJ on stage.
Oh, you haven't seen it? Well, we're not quite out of time. We have a few minutes.
Okay, go ahead.
But how long have you been here at the Cellar?
I got passed officially on July 3rd. Yeah, it's been a few
Were you
months.
recommended by?
Yes, I was recommended by Will, the Haitian OG, Will Sylvans, Sean Pine, Janelle James, and Emma Willman. Yeah.
We don't. I mean, recommendations like it's. That's
Janelle is really funny.
how that doesn't really have any weight, right? No, I mean, the recommendations just mean Esty will take a look at your tape,
Right.
but it doesn't have
Right.
any additional weight than that.
Yeah, if I went and bum, I don't think Esther would be like, oh, but
yeah, but Emma
Janelle
liked
said-
them.
Yeah, so I think you still have to prove it. So
No, but there is this awkward thing when somebody like famous recommends somebody and they suck. That's a dicey
yeah,
situation.
how do you deal with that one?
Does that really happen very often though?
It
Probably not
happens.
often, but
It happens. In the end, we don't use them. You know.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm sure it's done like I owe this person a debt. so
but
I'll
what
just
what if
recommend
Ray Romano, and he would never do it, this is just a hypothetical, said, hey, Noam, I'd really appreciate it if you used, if you used this guy, like, you know, I consider it a personal favor if you used him every weekend on every show.
We'd have to do it.
Yeah. So you wouldn't be like Robert De Niro in Casino, where you said he's, where, remember that old cowboy said, made Robert De Niro hire his nephew or something? De
I can't
Niro,
do it.
No,
No, I just these are nightmare scenarios. I hope it never happens.
yeah, Ray wouldn't. But just to be clear, Ray Romano would never do anything to put you in an awkward situation. But I'm just using that name and throwing it out there.
Who's the most likely famous person to do that? Let's build it. See. Who would do it?
Well, Noam's not going to say.
No, none of them. The famous people, at least to the extent that I know them, are tremendously deferential to us in what we need to run our business. None of them have ever thrown any weight around in any way whatsoever.
Well, it's funny we talking about this because just today I discovered, Facebook, they don't throw away any messages that would you exchange messages? Although I usually delete them because I
Oh,
have sort of
he's-
obsessive compulsive.
it's
But
a
somehow I
insane.
saved a message I stumbled on from Whitney Cummings from 2008 asking me to recommend her to Esty.
Oh wow.
So I just thought it was an interesting bit of.
Did you do it?
I probably did.
Is it 2008?
It was
You
in
can-
2008, and she said, "Can you recommend me to Esty?" And I probably did because
But
I
you don't
basically
know because you deleted the message.
no, I did. I delete the
you
response.
text him and he deletes it. Drake, did you get my text?
This
You
was,
go-
but this was a Facebook message, and I think that keeps it. Even if you delete it, it comes back. You can't really delete a Facebook message permanently. But I'm sure I did because my policy is to when anybody says recommend me to Esty, I recommend it to Esty and then let Esty deal with it.
Okay, Dan, you forgot a very important talking point. With all due respect to your policy about not letting me pick subjects,
Well, but if I pick the subject, then yeah, that's obviously not the same thing.
I emailed everybody about doing a live podcast
I can't do that.
for Dan's book.
Well,
You
for
could
Dan's
do
book.
it.
I get too much stage fright.
You'll be okay. You're on stage every Monday playing music.
It's different.
Well, he knows what he's doing when he's playing.
Well, he knows what he's doing when he's talking about your book too. You could-
Noam is highly opposed to doing it live. If we can, we'll work on him a little bit more, but then that we have to let it, at some point we have to respect his wishes and let it slide, but we'll work on him a little bit more.
But can
Can
we?
I-
at
can I-
least
can I
talk
do-
about- Yeah.
Can I do it by
yeah.
Zoom? Can I do it live via Zoom?
Well, no, because then I'm going to be on stage with him alone, and you've read the book and you
Well,
love it.
read
and
the
you
book.
know about, well, read my book, and then I'll read your book. I've written 2 fucking books. Nobody here has read them.
Yeah, that's disrespect. That's sexism.
That's
if you ask
disrespect.
me.
It's totally sexist.
Well, maybe Hatem would like to do it because Hatem was going to do something with me anyway. And
I
Periel,
do-
you're refusing to read Dan's book?
No, of course not. I'm going to read it, but I do think that there's a little bit of a double standard.
Is your
I mean,
book
you
as-
never
double
said to
standard.
Dan, are you not reading Periel's book? Look at him.
are both your books autobiographies?
no, Perel's book's a memoir, so it is autobiographical. Mine is a novel with autobiographical elements to it.
Oh, nice. Is it funny? I'm sure.
Well,
guy
I
like
think
you can
so.
stay
I
away
think
from
it's
writing
funny,
jokes.
but it's also poignant, bittersweet,
okay.
profound.
Wow.
It's got everything in there. You know, there's even a little bit of sci-fi in there.
You're a good salesman of yourself. I like
It's
it.
great. I actually started reading it, and it's really wonderful.
Noam's
I will read Periel's book, but the thing is, if you wrote the book
No,
since
don't read them. I don't care, but don't give me shit about not reading something else.
you don't care, you do a good impression of someone who does care. But anyway, if you had written a book, contemporaneous with this podcast, I think I would read it. Some book that you wrote 10 years about President Bush. I mean,
Okay, that was my first book. My second book is not about Bush, and neither is my first book, by the way.
and I know people have read them, and they're very explicit, and I don't want to picture you, with a penis in your mouth, and I just don't.
Do you have a book, Noam? Or are you the only one in this
Noam-
group without a book?
Yes.
I don't have a book.
Well,
will,
do you have a
though.
book, TJ?
No.
There's probably one in. You probably could get a book deal, by the way. Phil Hanley just got one.
I actually talked to an agent about a book. Yeah.
Noam should write a book.
Noam
too.
should write a book.
What, a novel?
No, you should
No.
write a book just like about, call it like racialized America. And one of those books that's going to get you on TV.
You should write like a political, like how you are.
And you could do
Or
it.
it could be Tales from the Comedy Cellar. One of
No,
the
he
greatest-
doesn't.
He doesn't
want
to write that, but
Okay.
Fred Kaplan could get you in touch with his agent. I bet you could get a book deal.
I'm less and less interested in politics. I find myself, I'm barely reading it. I'm barely keeping up. Like I know there's this, and then that story about this woman or disappeared or is murdered or something. That's a hot story. I have no
Yeah,
idea.
yeah. Petito?
Whatever it is.
Petito.
Dan was obsessed with this story.
It was an interesting story. Yeah, I haven't really paid
it
attention.
over? They
They're
found
still
out the
looking for
boyfriend did
guy.
it?
I think they're still, well, it's very likely that he did, but I don't know if they found him yet. He may be
Uh.
dead. I suspect he's dead.
Isn't Dog the Bounty Hunter looking for him? Didn't he say that he was? gonna
Yes, he's
find
looking
it?
for him, but
Noam,
Hmm?
I think that the kind of, let's not call it a live podcast, even though that's what it'll be. It'll be you interviewing Dan about his book. You can certainly manage doing that for like 40 minutes at like the Pussycat.
Why do you think people are going to come watch that live?
Oh, for the love of
Because Dan's an
God.
interesting guy.
Yeah, but they hear us on the podcast. Like,
Yeah, but then we could sell books afterwards. The audience could ask Dan questions.
listen, can you ask your friend who owns Stand Up New York if we can do it there?
Sure.
that's fine. Yeah, I'll do it at Stand Up New York.
Will you
But-
will you be the host at Stand Up New York? No, he's being a wise ass.
All right.
You gonna host it at Stand Up New York then?
I'm just saying, like, if it's
Well,
a
no one
risk,
wants the
if
room
it's
to
a
get
risky
filled,
ticket,
but
I'd rather
doesn't-
he take the risk.
He doesn't see how we're gonna fill the room with that on the bill. I mean, maybe we should just do like Hatem's idea was to just do a comedy show, and then so it's a comedy show anyway, and it'd be good with good comics on the show, and then I could talk about the book and say if you can buy a copy,
I
Um,
guarantee you.
I'll
we-
do whatever you want. I'll do
Oh,
whatever
thank
you
you. That's how I like to hear you, honey. We could sell out the Pussycat on like people.
well, but you have to figure out a way to pitch it that's satisfying, because the average person goes to the Comedy Cellar website, he's gonna say,
No,
Dan
the
Naturman talks about their book. I mean, if it's a comedy,
It'll be a special show. We'll put together a special show. It could be comedy too.
I'll come watch it.
I would love to be able to hear or read the bubble over TJ's head about Periel. Like, he's just meeting her. Like, what does he think of her?
You know what? You are the only person that finds me insufferable.
Well, the truth
is
is,
he
Noam and Periel are
thinking?
pretty good friends. Noam invites Periel over to his house. Periel spent more time at Noam's house than anybody else. So at the end of the day, he finds you quite sufferable.
No, but you know what he said to me? Because our families were quarantined together by accident. But
Ah.
that
You bought me this shirt. Did you buy me this shirt?
no, I bought you the one with the Puerto Rican stuff on
You
it.
didn't buy me social distancing expert?
No, I bought you
Well-
Backyardo, Quarantino Backyardo and Porta something.
Did you buy me
Any-
trophy husband?
No, I did not buy you.
Oh, okay,
Trophy
go ahead.
Husband.
Anyway, go ahead.
I bought you the AOC shirt.
All right, go ahead.
And I mean, literally, and our kids are really good friends, but for like 18 months, we were locked in. We were the only people that I saw was him and his wife, and I adore his wife. And all we did was just argue politics, to the point that my husband and his wife were just like, I cannot sit at a table. And Noam
I
said,
could see that.
and Noam said, and you should listen to this.
I'm listening. I
No,
don't
you're
want to
you're deleting.
I don't want to
messages.
take too much more TJ's time.
Noam said, I don't know what horrible thing I did in my life that of all the people in the world to get stuck in a house arguing politics with, it had to be you.
Yeah, well, yeah. I don't remember saying that, but
But
that
it sounds like you.
Yeah.
But he was probably being at least half kidding.
I think I put
Anyway.
it. I'm sure I had a more pithy way to express it.
I was like, I must have been Mussolini in a previous life to deserve this.
All right. Well, are we out of time now?
Well, we're technically never out of time, but it's we like to keep it tight. And TJ, I guess he has to be on stage at some point.
Yeah,
Can Lou
I'm
cut in?
looking
Can Lou cut
around
into the special? Can Lou
49,
cut in?
50.
Oh, he's got plenty of time.
What?
Yeah, I have a
Can
couple
Lou-
more questions. I'll answer them.
Can Lou cut into this episode some of TJ's publicly available stand-up?
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send you guys some
So
clips.
TJ's special January 3rd is available on what platform? YouTube,
Amazon Prime.
Amazon.
Now, is this called January 3rd because it's kind of like a little like this January 6th and this is January 3rd? That
That was before. That was way before. Has no relation whatsoever.
it's not 3 days before. It's a year and 3 days before.
Yes, it was 2020.
20.
I see.
January 6th happened what? 2021? Yes,
2021.
happened this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
well,
Jan-
just there's no way around it. If somebody sees January date, they're gonna somehow associate it with
Yeah,
January.
it's the joke now. Whenever people go on stage, just say January 6th. Everybody knows what it is. It's it's in there. But yeah, it was my birthday and it happened to be on a Friday. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll just tape my special that night. And it was really cool.
And also his podcast.
Raw Beef with Sean Patton.
Now,
also
Sean
a
Patton,
fellow
we
comedian.
should have you and Sean Patton on together. He's to me one of the biggest talents in
Oh,
comedy
yes, I
there
look up
is.
to that guy so much. He's insanely good.
He's incredibly gifted.
All right. Well, Perry, I will work on getting that.
Yeah, I'll
I'm
Father's
give you his
Day,
number.
when
We can
I'm,
reach out.
yeah,
like
that
to hear you
sounds
say that.
great. I'm so.
You know
pleased-
Sean? Do you know him, Perel?
I don't know him at all, but I'm just over the moon that no
I'll,
one
I'll put you guys in touch. Yeah.
finally authorized us to just be allowed to have comics on.
Sean
Is
Patton.
that a note you guys don't normally have?
No,
Well,
we ju-
oftentimes we'll have a journalist on or
and
somebody
a comic,
or an
but
intellect.
we just started, or an intellect. Those things are mutually.
I actually looked you guys up. You had somebody that I like a lot. Coleman Hughes. You had him on the podcast. I like him.
Yes, yeah, he's an old friend of ours.
I like
He's-
the work that he does.
Well, TJ, he plays with me at the Alchemy Monday nights. He's in my band, Coleman and
Oh, he
Coleman.
does?
May-
Okay, I'll
may-
come by on Monday night before my shows and check him out.
Coleman and I are
Um,
really close friends. I'll
we haven't
introduce-
had him on in a while because he's got a podcast now that's doing quite well, and I guess
Yeah,
he's,
conversations.
he's
with Coleman.
busy, and he does come here every Monday to play his trombone.
I just don't like to ask my friends to do the podcast. That's all.
Yeah,
He would do it.
fine.
Coleman would do it. But I'm not sorry. I'm happy that you were a fan of Coleman's because he's a very substantial intellect in my opinion.
Yes, he's very sharp, and he's also very brave in talking about ideas that Black people might call him a coon for talking about it, which is I really hate this part of the culture where if you don't share the opinions that the public has decided that's the Black opinion, then Black people turn on you. So I commend him for doing that.
Yeah, and you know, knowing him very, very well, he is not one of these guys who's, you know, trying to disassociate himself from his race or his
That's right.
background.
Yeah.
He embraces his Blackness. I mean, I hope I'm just saying it sounds funny coming out of my mouth, but he embraces who he is very deeply.
Yes, I feel
that
way. Yeah.
He just follows logic where he feels it takes,
yes.
you know.
And is willing to have uncomfortable conversations.
Yes.
And that's what we're supposed to do. If you're a comedian or an intellectual, you gotta go to places where it might be tricky to go.
Yeah. Oh, that's terrific. I'll look forward to introducing you guys on Monday.
If we're talking about my book, it is available on Amazon.com. I Respiro Before COVID is what it's called.
What's the? Oh, okay, that's the title.
And Periel's books, The Only Wish I Trust Is My Own, and On My Knees, also available on Amazon.com. Also, highly rated.
Nice.
On the Amazon 1 to 5 star system. Podcast at comedyseller.com for questions, comments, suggestions, guest ideas, etc. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you
and
for
we'll
having.
see you next time, Bob.
I had a good time.
Good night,
Adios.
everybody.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.